Okay. This is my paper. Okay. I want to ask all of you here a question. What's something you're struggling with right now? And I want you to actually come up with a struggle and keep it in your mind as you listen to my speech. Perhaps it's something with mental health. Perhaps it's a turbulent relationship with a partner, or perhaps you're sleep deprived because you spend so much time preparing and administrating this speech competition. That struggle you have in your mind right now is a conflict. It's a conflict between something more powerful than yourself, a demon, and the inner feeble person that you are. Washing one's hands of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless means to side with the powerful and not to be neutral. Well, what does this quote really mean to us, especially in the context of this speech? Let me share with you an example of something that I really struggled with. 2 years ago, I was at this local school in Japan, but it wasn't just any local school. It was one of the most academically rigorous and competitive cutthroat environments I've ever been in my entire life. People would post all our grades publicly and put them on the wall, so I would be publicly humiliated every time I would trail down that list and see my name at the very bottom. And because academics was something I truly valued, something like a lot of my self-worth was based upon, my self-esteem started to crumble when I realized that my grades were not up to par. And this is partly because of the cultural shock from moving from LA to Japan so quickly, partly because I'm not entirely fluent in Japanese and much more fluent in English. But a lot of this was because I was just a bit lazy. There was a powerful force that told me not to do my homework, not to work hard, and the powerless person that I am, I did nothing about it. And when I lost that sense of control in my life, I started to want to control other things. And that's when I started controlling my weight, where I would weigh myself 5 times a day after every single meal because I didn't want to gain a single kilogram, where I would look at food and wouldn't see the food itself, but just the calorie labels behind it because I had memorized the calorie labels of every single food. And I tell you this and make myself a bit vulnerable here because I think washing your hands of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless means taking action, doing something about the problems that you're going through. Because words prove what people want to be, but actions prove who someone really is. Because we all have some kind of vague notion about the person that we want to become. I want to go to a prestigious university. I want to find someone that I really love. I want to bond meaningful relationships, and I want to do well in life. I have these dreams and aspirations for myself, but it's completely different to proving who you really are through actions. And that's why when you side with the powerful, you're not just being a bystander, but you're actively perpetuating the inequalities in the system. And this doesn't have to be always on a societal level about Black versus white people or discrimination and injustice. This can be internal problems that you go through right now. The Stonewall riots to fight against LGBTQ discrimination in the workforce, people like Greta Thunberg and Malala and Rosa Parks, these are all individuals who decided to not side with the powerful, not stand neutral, but take action against it. When women decided that sexual harassment in the workplace should not and will not be a norm and protested against it, they were siding with the powerless. They decided to take some kind of action because doing nothing is just as bad as perpetuating the inequalities in the system. So let's revisit that struggle you identified in the beginning of my talk. That struggle you're going through right now, it might be internal, it might be external, it might be because of the injustices or discrimination in society, it might just be because of your own inner demons like I struggled with 2 years ago. But just like I did right now, I did something about it. I used my audience right now to tell the world something I struggled with, to destigmatize the mental health issues and eating disorders. And I want all of us in this room right now to go back to that struggle and do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 57 seconds, judges.
Okay.
These are the notes. I just have a timer set up here next to me. So if I glance down, that's what I'm looking at, nothing extra. Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to imagine an image. Maybe it's a bit too comfortable for home. You might have seen it in your life, or you might have experienced it yourself. Two partners living together, the guise of happiness, a healthy relationship from the outside, and what everyone wants to be. But underneath, there's an undercurrent of difficulty, a clash between the two. It looks like one partner unloading onto the other, dominating the relationship, decisions, and emotionally abusing the other. Over time, it wears down on one while propping the other up. Does it sound real to you? Have you lived through it before? Have you been too scared to speak about it? Toxicity in relationships is something that everyone goes through in life, but it's something that needs to be examined. A relationship should be something where you feed each other, not where one feeds off the other like a ghoul. In today's speech, I'm going to be showing you 3 main things. Firstly, what is a toxic relationship and how to identify it? Secondly, what is the kind of relationship we should all strive for and why that's the kind of love you need? Finally, why it's so important to know the difference and be able to do it. So let's look at it. Each of us have had experiences with toxic and difficult relationships, situations where you claim to love each other, but the damage to yourself is detrimental. There are a few main things that characterize it. 1, a dominance and unwilling to listen to the other person. 2, an emotional level of disregard for the other's well-being. And 3, when it comes to a decision between what to do for each of you, one person is always prioritized. You become the stepping stone they use to progress while you are driven further into the mud. It destroys mental health. It destroys your happiness. And it feels like a trap you can't escape from because the words of encouragement and love and the perception of others is too strong. But today I implore you, examine your relationships and don't allow that to be your reality. Secondly, what do we think a good relationship actually looks like? Much like the idiom I presented to you, it's catered by love, but not the hollow shell viewed by others, but instead the reality of what it should be like. The willingness to sacrifice for someone else, to put someone else's needs above your own, and to be equal in a relationship. This means when you talk about something, you both get to weigh in, that neither person emotionally damages the other, and that when you contemplate each other's lives, you view them as more important as your own. Because the expression, I take a bullet for you, should stand true in any relationship, not would you take one for me. That's the kind of relationship we need to strive for. It's the one we need to examine, and it's the one we need to work towards. And yes, it sounds idealistic, and obviously there is no relationship without its ups and downs. But when you work in your relationship, that needs to be the focal point. Finally, why is it so important to know the difference between the two? Because oftentimes we derive our sense of happiness and joy from these relationships. And the point at which a relationship is more sorrow and work than the joy you get out of it, that's not love. That's a parasite. That's someone draining you for the value you have, and it's a waste of your time. It destroys your mental health. It destroys your future. And ultimately, there's someone out there in the world who is exponentially better for you, willing to give you the world and view you as the perfect being in their eyes and have a real sense of love. what it actually should be. In today's speech, if there's one thing I want you to take away, is an examination of your relationships. A clear understanding how love is not always the same. And you don't want the hollow kind, the kind that's abusive, toxic, and ultimately a trap. You want to look for the kind where you build each other up. You work together towards a common future. And when you look in the world, you have rose-tinted glasses. Because ultimately, that's how you find joy and a sense of greater meaning without material possessions. Stand for true love. Know your worth.
Great job. The speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Judges.
So these are my notes, putting them to the side. Okay. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, I've gone to the same school since I was in kindergarten. And being in grade 12, it's been really interesting to really reflect back upon all of my years spent at this one place in my life. And this school is definitely a competitive environment. I've always been the kind of an individual at school who really takes my academics seriously. And prior to my grade 12 year, I was pretty competitive with my peers, and I didn't really like to talk about different failures that I'd experienced within different classes, because there definitely were many, but I was never one who would want to wear that on my sleeve. This year, however, I realized that I wanted to make real connections with the people around me, being in my final year, and I wanted to be able, at the end of graduation, to understand that I was able to really talk to other people, have a valuable relationship with all of these other individuals I was graduating with, and just feel that I was able to relate to them. So I decided to just be a little bit more open, be a little bit more vulnerable about when I was experiencing different failures, talk about when I didn't get that perfect mark, talk about when I didn't get into like the dream program I wanted to in university. And I realized that the relationships I was fostering this year were more genuine and were more just filled with the sense of mutual appreciation when individuals are genuine. So, ladies and gentlemen, the topic that I wanted to talk to you about today, and the term that I've received, is disingenuous. And I think, evidently, that this is the absolute worst thing that we can be as human beings. Rather, it is so much more important to wear your heart on your sleeve, be vulnerable with other people, show that you're a genuine individual, and that is how we're able to not only foster meaningful relationships with those around us, but feel comfortable as ourselves and feel comfortable in our skin and confident around those that we want to make relationships with. So the two things that I want to talk to you about in this speech are both of those reasons. Firstly, how we're able to foster meaningful relationships with people around us. And secondly, how we get to be our true selves when we put genuinity at the forefront of who we are as individuals. So firstly, why is it so important that we're genuine in order to make meaningful relationships? Probably, as many of us know, no one really likes to coexist with people who try to act perfect all the time. This might be in a school situation like where my sense of competition kicked in, or this might just be with friends around you, in a relationship, in the workplace, anything like that. When other individuals put on this front of being this perfect individual, they're not necessarily genuine about when they experience ups and downs in life. It makes us feel as other individuals that there's some far off entity, that we aren't able to really relate to them as other human beings. However, when we act with this genuine state of mind, we come across as real, imperfect humans. We're able to foster relationships with other people around us and create that sense of mutual understanding over this common human existence. Secondly, and more importantly, it's how we feel on the inside as ourselves, as individuals, when we're able to be genuine with people around us. I think we can all come to this common understanding of how good it feels to be seen and heard by other people around us when we're in our most true state. This might look like receiving comfort and support from a loved one when we're in one of those like low points of life. And it feels really, really good to be vulnerable with people, not only to get that kind of understanding back from them, but also to feel like we are heard and seen and that our emotional struggle is valid. So ladies and gentlemen, if you get anything out of my speech today, don't try to be this perfect individual who doesn't really have any flaws. Rather, be genuine, show your struggles, show your emotions, all of this, because it's important to be able to make relationships with those around us and also to feel comfortable in our skin. So ladies and gentlemen, be genuine. Thank you.
Judges, speaker spoke for 4 minutes and 45 seconds.
All right, and that concludes our grand finals round. Thank you so much.